Welcome to episode 285. Over the coming weeks, the Fitness Business Podcast is supporting you through COVID-19 with a series of special interviews. In part one of today's episode, you'll hear from Jason Stowell. He's the fitness and membership consultant to the JCCs of America, and he's created a 3-step guide to running effective team meetings online. Then in part two, I'm joined by Terry Hawkins. She's the founder and CEO of Progress Retail. During our interview, Terry shares advice for owners, managers, and employees that have been affected by the circumstances of COVID-19. She helps us understand what we need to do to get out of the pit and flip the switch. This week's show is brought to you by our friends at Tribe Team Training. Thank you so much for listening and enjoy this week's episode. Jason Stowell, welcome along.
Thank you. It's amazing to be back. Thank you.
Now, you have created a 3-step guide to running effective team meetings online. Do you want to talk us through those 3 steps?
Absolutely. So, as you can imagine, we've all had to innovate rapidly through this disruption that we call COVID-19. Most of us knew that there were solutions out there for taking our meetings online, but a lot of us didn't start mobilizing on that until necessity kind of dictated, right? So recently I created this 3-step guide to help businesses, help other agencies get online and to manage their workforce virtually. So before we can get in that 3-step guide, there are 3 prerequisites that I'm going to ask for everyone to consider putting in place prior to the implementation of that system, okay? So the first thing you need to do is you got to make sure you have established a virtual shared workspace, right? So everyone should be able to go, regardless if your team is 5 people or 5,000 people, to get shared documents. It could be Google Drive. Most companies already have some type of intranet, but some type of virtual workspace, right? The second tip there, as a prerequisite, is you have to already have created an account and hosted a virtual meeting, right? So some of those potential offerings would be like GoToMeeting, Microsoft Live Meetings, WebEx. My preference is Zoom, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is going to be Zoom related, but they're all fairly similar. And then the third piece is, and I can't overstate this enough, is do not assume your staff knows how to work effectively from home. Okay, we come home, we think, okay, we're going to get on the computer. I got my notes here, but there's so much that has to go into that. So, for example, make sure that your staff sets a dedicated work area where they can conduct it. Keep it clean, keep it clear, keep it work-related only. You should set expectations for them around hours, when they should be available for calls and texts and things like this. And just 2 personal recommendations is, 1, make sure you keep a morning ritual. Everyone's been disrupted, and I know I had my process for waking up and doing my thing before I got to work, and now it's like, oh my gosh, my 2 realities, my personal and professional, are crashing together. So establish a new morning ritual, and the second one is make sure you set some basic expectations with your family, right? Just because I'm at home and I'm working in my pajamas doesn't necessarily mean I'm available to clean the thing. I don't want to, I don't get in trouble, so we'll say clean the thing, right? All right, so those are the 3 prerequisites I'm going to ask that you do, right? So number 1, you want to have an effective advanced scheduling guide, okay? So meetings in your box usually happen, like let's say you met with your Group X director on Mondays at 1. You should continue to meet with your Group X director Mondays at 1, right? You should set up recurring touch bases with your employees, and even a little bit more frequently now. So for example, I would meet with my personal training director on Fridays at noon. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a 15 minutes on Monday, 15 minutes on Wednesday, and a half hour on Friday to continue to touch bases, right? So set up advanced scheduling with all of your staff. You also want to set up an all-skate meeting once a week. So again, it could be Monday to set the pace, could be Friday to summarize and set next week's agenda, but have everyone get together into this virtual meeting once a week as well. And the last piece of that is you want to make sure you stick to goals and deadlines. It's even more important now. Right? So I'm sure everyone who manages staff knows some staff they don't need micromanage. They can just get it done and they'll go. And then other staff need very clear outlines, right? Even more now. So as soon as we get off this call, you go to make lunch, you do all the things, the dog needs out of the yard, right? And so life starts to take over even more so now than it was before. So it's very important to establish that every single goal you give, that these are your goals and these are your deadlines for expectations, right? So that's step 1, effective scheduling guide. The second one here is you want to make sure you set clear agenda and expectations around the content and the actionables coming out of these meetings, right? So this is going to be a little deeper one, so I'm going to go a little bit longer on this piece here, right? So some of my meetings are just one-on-one. Some of my meetings are with groups of 5 to 10, but we have meetings on when we go to the agency level, or excuse me, the national level, of almost 100 people, right? The last meeting I was a part of had 132 individuals on there, right? So when you get to structure that big, you need to have very streamlined processes and expectations. So I recommend with meetings above 25 people that you establish the role of the speaker and the presenter, and you also want a moderator, right? The moderator is going to take the meeting notes. They're going to read questions that are written into the chat. They may even read the questions out loud when you get to that portion of the agenda, which we'll talk to, right? So for larger meetings, make sure you have a moderator established as well. And I recommend that you rotate that role. People tend to generally judge how good a meeting was by how much they participated in a meeting. So rotate it. Don't have the same person. I know that Nancy might be the best person for getting the best notes, but that's not what this is about. This is about engagement with our staff virtually, right?
Jason, I'm going to jump in. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm going to jump in and just ask you a super quick question because I know it might have been on some people's minds. What platform did you use to run a successful meeting with 130 participants?
It was, Zoom.
It was Zoom? It was a paid Zoom account?
Correct. That's right. Yes,
excellent. I'm fascinated to hear that because I think, and I'm so excited that we're going into this detail because I think a lot of people would be nervous to be part of such a large scale meeting. So I won't interrupt anymore. You were just talking about the importance of mixing up the moderator from meeting to meeting. So back to you.
So I think to your point, I'm a big believer in structure, right? So predictable systems give you predictable results. So whether I have a meeting of 5 people, 50 people, 5,000 people, as long as everyone has a very clear set of rules and expectations, a code of conduct, which we're going to talk about here, as well as an outlined agenda of how they're going to participate and what their follow-throughs are going to be after, you can manage meetings enormously, right? And we're going to go a little deeper into that in a second here with when you get to those larger meetings, how are you going to make sure that this doesn't just turn into everyone speaking over each other, right? So in addition to establishing the rules, right, the presenter, the speaker, and the moderator, you want to have a code of conduct beforehand. So everyone should know before meetings, right? They want to arrive 2 minutes early. You should have an established dress code. Do you want them to dress up for the meetings, or is it going to be dressed down? Is pajamas okay? You know, we've all seen the people go into the bathroom with the Zoom calls, right? It's just, we're all learning, right? It's really interesting time. I usually recommend that, especially on Zoom, if you want to, everyone's defaulted to mute. If you want to speak, there's a little raise your hand function. Highly recommend that you tell staff that don't just unmute and speak. Put the raise your hand piece. Let this presenter or the moderator pick you. Okay, Jason, please. That way you're not all talking over each other. Or with the really large groups, you want to chat.
Where's the raise your hand function?
Oh, in Zoom? It's,
yeah.
It's down here somewhere.
See, I've got reaction, but okay. So
I'm using my free account. That's the
problem.
I
was just about to say, in the interest of transparency, we're recording this on a free account.
Tools.
So so let's just clarify. So the hands up, want to ask a question function is in the paid version of Zoom.
Correct. So if you don't have that, yeah. If you don't have that, then the larger piece, what I was going to do, is you just type your question into chat and then let the moderator or the presenter call on you. So instead of just unmuting and going, what you'll say, you'll just say, hey, I have a question, Jason, when you get a second. And then I will call upon that person, right? So the code of conduct dictates, don't just speak up, please. Let's not talk over each other. Either raise your hand on the paid accounts or on the free one, make sure you type into the chat, okay? So again, under number 2, with that clear agenda and expectations, you got your virtual meeting of conduct. You've got your 2 roles established. And then you want to have an agenda, an advanced agenda, right? And so a good agenda for a virtual meeting should have the key talking points. It should have like your meeting structure, for example, when, who, how long, what are they going to discuss on each talking point, right? Am I going to speak to this and the CFO is going to speak to that? You should have an advanced list of who's going to be on the call so everyone knows exactly who's going to be there and participating, right? What each team member is responsible for bringing to the meeting, and any relevant documents, files should be disseminated beforehand, right? You don't want to be on the meeting and find out that everyone doesn't have the agenda beforehand. The last piece for this number 2 is going to be these online meeting follow-ups. I'm a big believer, and I actually learned this from you from one of your sessions I went to at Athletic Business, was that you shouldn't take any meetings unless you have a very clear agenda and expected outcomes, right? Otherwise, don't put it on your schedule. So for our online meetings, I always expect follow-ups with deliverables and next steps. So you should never have a meeting without clear next steps. Who's responsible for following up with what? When are these deliverables going to be due? And when's the next meeting that we're going to check in? I'll see you again on Wednesday at blah, 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 right? So that's for the agendas. And then the third piece is the last one here for effective virtual meetings is you want to set some virtual meetings default settings. Right? So there's lots of different options. And again, I'm going to speak to Zoom specifically. I don't know all the ones out there, right? But I like to have everyone just muted upon entry, right? I don't want, when you get into these larger meetings with 100 plus people, you don't want dogs barking. And you can imagine how chaotic this can be, right? So start default to mute, please. The second one is always, always, always start with the video on as default, right? So we need to humanize these meetings. There was a study in Harvard that just shows when people can see each other with video, they just feel more engaged. They feel like they're part of the process as opposed to audio alone. So make sure you start with video as a default. And then I'm personally a fan of allow screen sharing. Again, occasionally I'm going to go through something and I'm going to want to share it with them. And if it's not on by default, it becomes very challenging to get there. Now for the larger meetings, I disable the play sound when participants come and go. So you can have it come on like ding, Jason just showed up, Chantel just showed up, right? Again, once you get over a few people, it becomes disorienting. And then I also do enable private chat on the larger meetings. Now, when you have organizations that are, again, our default organization in Pittsburgh here can be meetings from 20 to 50 people. Occasionally when the CEO is talking, I'm going to want to ask my direct supervisor a question like, hey, should we talk about this? And I need to be able to private chat that person as opposed to going to my text messages, okay? So I like to enable private chat. Now, if this is an educational sales training, again, now this is for Zoom paid, but you can enable breakout rooms. Huge fan of breakout rooms. And a really good reason why you should, I'm doing a Zoom commercial. Another good reason you should consider that.
So we're going to send this to Zoom afterwards and see if they buy some advertising.
Yeah, they have to at this point, right?
Brilliant.
Breakout rooms
Keep going.
this genius piece. Yeah, I just swear to God they didn't pay me. I swear I did. But these breakout rooms are awesome. So let's say weekly right now with the association, we'll have anywhere from 80 to 150 professionals on the call, and it'll be content driven about either best practices on how you're handling the closure or what you're looking at for legalities or reopenings and things like this. And it's hard in a room that's 100 people big to really get to some substantial content. So about 15 minutes in the meeting, we'll push groups of 6 to 7 people that they can discuss best practices about 15 minutes. And then we come back to the larger meeting. We bring the breakout rooms back in. We can ask, hey, so who had a great idea? Who heard something from somebody else? A lot of people feel selfish about sharing their own idea. They have this egocentric, like, I don't want to share. But somebody else will say, oh, well, Jacksonville's doing this awesome yada, 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 right? And what we found is by using these breakout rooms, we're able to pull out just really strong content that everyone can take back to their clubs, their health clubs, their agencies, whatever it be, and utilize. I said before in our last call, none of us are as smart as all of us. And so if we can create this brain trust, this mastermind, 100 individuals go into these smaller groups, they boil out the best topics and bring it back, we can all be better from that. So for the bigger educational ones, breakout rooms are huge, right? So those are my 3 steps.
Absolutely phenomenal, Jason. I'm so excited about all of that. And I have to apologize because I think just inadvertently I straight away broke the code of conduct because I didn't put my hand up and I didn't private message you. I just jumped right in. But I'm learning.
Now, so.
I'm learning.
Perfect. That's no problem.
So quick question, and it's getting into, I guess, a bit more deeper technical stuff. Those breakout rooms, I think, is an area of Zoom that probably a lot of people haven't yet explored. For anyone that does want to give that a go, how do you allocate who goes into which breakout room? Like, how do you technically grab those people and put them into that breakout room? And those people, do you do it before the meeting actually starts, or can you do it on the fly as you're having a meeting?
So it's an and scenario. You can do either. The only way you can assign, let's say 150 clubs are joining this call. of those 150 clubs, 50 of them don't have a pool, right? So you know that you want to talk about aquatics potentially on this call, and the people that don't have the pool aren't going to get as much. So if you know the list that was coming in beforehand, you can set, I want Chantel, Jason, Justin to be in group A. I want everyone who does have a pool to be in group B, right? And you can make these breakout rooms as big or as small as you want. So you can set that as long as you do it in advance. Now, if you don't do it in advance, you can still do it. You just have to set it randomly. You literally set the size of the room and just boom, and it randomizes. So the answer is it's either or.
That's awesome. Okay. So from your experience, Jason, in applying those 3 steps that you talked about to our meetings, what type of feedback have you had from team members as a result of, I guess, approaching these Zoom meetings with, or these online meetings with such clear boundaries and clarification and agendas? What type of feedback are people giving you around being part of meetings of this nature?
It's new for a lot of us. You know, there was that uncomfortable first week. I don't know where in Australia necessarily the shutdown and stay-at-home orders happen, but we've been doing this about 3 weeks now, so we're becoming seasoned pros at this. Structure is always beneficial because it gives kind of like a clear line of expectation ahead of time. So again, the people aren't talking over. So we're able to cover more content. We're able to engage more, leave more time at the end for people to ask questions if they'd like by applying a clear timeline of expectations. So if anything, we're much more effective and much more confident in how we're going to conduct these things in the future. Again, because everyone just kind of knows what to expect ahead of time, as opposed to let's get it on at 5 and Jason wants to talk about something.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. I'm really excited because I think that a lot of us kind of dived into this online meeting environment super quickly just because we had to. And we kind of take for granted that we need to be very structured around these things. We need to really think about how they run in order for these meetings to be as effective as they possibly can be. So, Jason, let's wrap all of this up into our Keep Me Fit inspiration for today. And do you want to just leave us with your number 1 tip for using an online video platform for our team meetings?
So this is a tip that's going to be for, I don't care if you're at the bottom of the chain or you're the CEO of the company. Make sure you're present. Do not multitask. It is going to be so hard to not check your email, type a message, search the web while John Doe is speaking, because you know you're probably not going to get called on, but you want to be present. I got a book recommendation, right? Essential NLP. I believe it's Amanda Vickers. And what she spoke about, what NLP speaks about generally, is that there really is no multitasking. It's just this rapid switch back and forth of your attention, which really just diminishes your ability to do anything well. And so I know, especially in the beginning, it's hard to get there, but if you're on a meeting with somebody, do your best to be present. Do not multitask. That's my biggest tip.
Hang on. I'm just new at Zoom, so I had to unmute myself. So
You're doing great. You're doing great.
Just kidding. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that point up because I've heard multiple studies that talk about that we need to avoid trying to do many things at once. Multitasking is a myth and just focusing on that one thing. And I know it's hard. It's super hard to get used to that, especially with so many distractions, because most of the time we are, we get so used to having the television on and being on our phone, right? So it's just a habit that we get into. So I couldn't agree more. Make sure that you are present in that meeting, focusing on what's being said so that you do get the most out of it. So Jason, thank you so much. It's been so much fun catching up with you. Thank you for your super practical advice around online team meetings. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I know that there are tips in there that will help everyone out there. So a huge thank you so much to you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome. Always awesome.
It's now my pleasure to welcome our second guest this week. She's the founder and CEO of Progress Retail, Terry Hawkins. Terry, welcome along. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, Chantel, I always love time with you.
I absolutely love spending time with you as well. And just a quick reminder to anyone, if you recognise Terry, maybe you've worked with her over the years, or maybe you heard Terry's interview back on episode, what was it? I think it's about 168. It was a while ago, but we had a wonderful chat. It was years ago, but we had a wonderful chat back then. And Terry very kindly, in the last 24 hours, has agreed to come and join us today for this special broadcast. And it's literally 24 hours ago, I think, we emailed you and said, hey, would you mind coming and sharing a little bit of your wisdom and your inspiration with all of the FBP family? So, Terry, before we get into the conversation or the topic for today, do you want to just tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I've been around for a little bit. I'm going to put my glasses on. I like to sort of start, you know,
yeah.
And then but then I can't see anything. Exactly. Then you have that look like, you know, where is everybody? And so 35 years actually, I started in the education business. Started in retail on the shop floor. Very quickly, 7 years, went into national training roles. Had the amazing fortune actually when I was 24 though, to work for a Japanese training company for a short period of time. Little did I realise it was going to come back round. And that's when personal growth was unheard of. And so I got the chance to spend, it was a 5-day live-in course from 7 a.m. we went through till midnight. But they were all CEOs. One woman was from India and she was responsible for the censorship. She was the head of the censorship board in India. It's like whatever many millions of people there, 600 million people. And so at 24 years of age, I got the chance to see what it looked like but if I owned my life and if I took full responsibility for myself, my feelings and so forth. And we all know my past and so forth, or not, but anyway, it's another story another time. Look it up on whatever it is.
I think we talked about it on I'll put a link to the episode for everyone.
But yeah, so I started my own company when I was 27, 28 years of age, People in Progress, a training company. I had $165 or $67 or something, card table and a wonky computer. Had no self-esteem, no self-worth, didn't know what I was doing, had no idea. But it's funny because I believed everybody else's version of me. So that was enough. And so they just said that for some reason I just had a way of words and I had a way of influencing people in a retail space. Cut a long story short, 30 years later, the business just went from, all of our business came through word of mouth. And what I did though was I wrapped personal growth inside of skills development and so forth. And then 3 years ago, I decided that I wanted to get my content online. I tried in 2005. I actually did my first iteration of my care program online. And then, of course, didn't know how to market it. I think we talked about that in the last video, on the last interview. And then met my business partner and we decided to build our own platform. And so now we have our own education platform, which has a learning management system inside of it. So we have our own learning room and then we have other parts to the platform as well. So that's sort of where I am at now. So I'm a starter. We might as well hit the road running and just be really honest and transparent because everyone's talking about, let's just be transparent.
That's right. That's what it's all about at the moment, isn't it? So tell us. You go.
No, I was just going to say, I think transparency is, I'll be as transparent as I want you to know. Mm. Instead of, well, I'm a startup, I've got $150,000 debt and I've got $6,000 in the bank and my monthly expenses are $20,000. And I'm saying that because I want people to go, have a look. Mm. Oh, something just came into me then. So I'm saying this to whoever it is. I'm going to take my glasses off. I've got to say it. People think I'm nuts, but if you're sitting there and you think you can't get through this because you don't have enough money, freaking call me. I'm serious. I don't want anyone doing anything stupid because you're trying to get away from it. All you're trying to do is get relief. That's all it is relief. And you will get through this. There are plenty of couches out there. Let's get rid of the I'm going to swear, I never swear, bullshit persona of I've got to look like I've got it all together. You do have it all together because you're telling the truth. So even reach out to Chantel. If you're having any of those, they're not dark moments, and we'll talk about this. They are simply your truth coming to the surface. Let's just bring it up. Let's deal with it. Let's walk through it together. You'll be okay. I can promise you.
You guys can see right now why we called Terry yesterday to get her onto this interview, and it's all going to it's all going to become very apparent in this time that we spend together this morning. And so I think let's dive in, Terry, and thank you so much, because your message, and that's going to be the first of many I know, will impact so many people. And you're right, you said before, at an early age, people realize that you had a way with words and you have a way of influencing and impacting people. And that's exactly why we wanted to get you on the interview today, because we are all feeling it. There is no one that is not affected by this crisis right now. And I think that we're in a different world. We're working from home. You're working from home. I'm at home, and everyone out there is just facing this whole different world. And it's impossible not to be affected by it in some way, shape, or form. So I would love to hear your take on the situation. And, given everything, that you've been through and that you are experiencing personally yourself right now, give us some of your advice as to how we can handle this situation currently.
Okay. So that's so beautiful that you say that. And I have to say, I don't know why. And I'm not, so I know I come across very strong, and I get lots of criticism around how I'm all over the place and I'm doing, she's up, she doesn't talk in a straight line, and I don't. But I almost started crying before, and not for me, but for the people that we can feel. You just said it. Everyone's feeling it. Everyone's feeling it, and we're supposed to feel it. That's the whole thing. It's like, I can look out my window, and I thought this the other day. I was just looking out my window, and I couldn't see I live on the boardwalk in Redondo Beach. I couldn't see a soul. There wasn't a single soul to be seen. And I looked out to all the houses on the hills and the apartments next door, and I knew they were filled with people. And I'd never felt closer to my fellow man than looking out the window that day knowing, well, they're keeping me safe and I'm keeping them safe. So it is about feeling, and I think we don't allow ourselves to go there, because it's actually quite painful. And, one of the things we're talking about before we started the call was, I think I'm actually excited for the planet. I really am. I think that our shadow side is coming up, and your shadow side can't come up unless you give it space. We have to, and I'm not the expert on this. Please understand, I don't know, don't think of me as an authority on anything. Truly, I go, if you don't believe me or it doesn't resonate, then go and look it up, go and research it, go and do your own journey, go and do your own learning. The shadow to me is the part of us. It's not we can call it ugly, but oh my gosh, I do have it. I'm doing this new keynote, and it's about a broomstick. And this is my baby broomstick.
That's your little broomstick.
That's my baby broomstick. And no, I'm not a witch. So, well, my kids might say different. But I was going to say, we go the shadow and we say, oh, the shadow's up here and the light's down here. Well, it is. But if you're all light and no shadow, then you have an imbalance. And if you're all shadow and no light, you don't have a balance. And so we need all parts of us. It's like people who are often in abusive relationships are because they have not learnt boundaries. They have not learnt to speak up for themselves. The bully and the victim are either end of the broomstick. They're both equally responsible. So the shadow is not an ugly, discarded part of ourselves that we want to get rid of. We want to meet it. So if you think about it, we're all in confined spaces, and it's fun for 15 minutes, isn't it? Isn't it? You go, oh, I know what, we'll have picnics in the lounge room. We'll read to the kids every day. We'll have group cuddles. It's going to be good quality time. And, within 2 hours, you want to punch them in the face. I had someone on the phone I was doing a call the other day with a client, and she was going to go mad at her husband for the dog barking.
Him making the dog bark, right?
Exactly. And it's like, it's such
it was his fault.
Or you don't have any money because you didn't prep for it. I haven't prepped for this. I didn't save for this.
Nobody expected it, right?
No. And
no one did.
I don't want to hear from the people who learnt this lesson 10 years ago. I learnt this lesson and we saved for this, and now we're fine. We're going to get through it. I think we need to hear from the people who go, I have no idea. My son and I, because my son lives at home with me, we have become I said, call everybody. I'm not calling them. I'm saying, call everybody. Yeah, I think that the shadow is something that we just need to look at. Companies have a shadow. Everybody has a shadow. My shadow is my anger. My shadow is my self-doubt. My shadow is putting everybody else first and not myself. My shadow is expecting people to return what they get given. You know? So, yeah, I'd love us to... I'm just going to... I'm just writing as things come to mind, like energy exchange.
So let's dive into this, because what I want to do is to be able to help people out there that are feeling these dark times, that are really getting affected by it, because I think that we all are. You know, what are some of the ways that we can handle it? How can we address it? Or what advice would you give to people who are feeling that shadow, that darkness, the difficulties of this situation, either from a personal perspective or within their business? Because we've got gyms out there, and I know there are owners and managers of businesses that are feeling physically sick because they've had to stand down their staff. You know, they've had to make changes to their business that they never in a million years would have dreamt that they've had to change, and it's been out of their control. So, Terry, what kind of advice would you give to those people that are in that position at the moment?
So here we go again. I can see both sides. I really can, because I work for a lot of the time when you're an employee mindset, you go, how could they do that to us?
Mm.
And I go, they didn't do anything to you. You chose to be an employee, therefore you put your financial security in employment. Like, you have to be real. It's the same with me as a business owner. I put my financial security in my own hands. So if you have to let people go, like, you've got to do the math. And I think it's just, I've done all these little videos, and I don't want to repeat myself in case someone's, seen them, but there's two things. The first question I ask myself, and as you know, I've come through a very, very tough personal journey as a child, every form of abuse you could ever imagine. I actually get tired of actually telling the story. What is the worst thing that could possibly happen? I think that's the question I ask myself. So I have lost my wealth probably 3 times now. So first time was through marriage. The second time was when I came to America and I got very, very sick. And the third time is now with this startup. So not that I had a lot when I started, but anyway. But, sold my house, took the thing. What is the worst case scenario? Like, you got to ask yourself, what's the worst case scenario? For me, is death. Like, anything above death to me is here. Now, some people will go, their pride. I know people who have committed suicide because their pride was more important than their life. And that's when you've got to go, that's just your shadow. That's just your ego. So the first thing I would do is I would literally, and then you name, so what you do is you future pace. So you sit here and you go, okay, what is the worst thing that's going to happen? You go into the future and you imagine. So you've got to pause, be still, be quiet. And it's a personal event. It's not a couple event. It's a personal event. And then you can come together as a couple. What's the worst thing that would happen as a couple? What's the worst thing that would happen as a family? What's the worst thing that would happen as a... So as an individual, I'll start with me. You go into the future, and then you literally go into your imaginative mind, feel it, and feel it, and go into it and start to bring up the feelings. It'll hit your heart because we've actually been trained over the last, say, 10 years to not feel anymore. Your heart, now you're not getting anxiety. You don't have anxiety. Let's all settle down. Don't send me hate mail. I'll just delete it. We don't have anxiety. It's actually, this is so true. We experience feelings. You experience anxiety. You experience happiness. You experience sadness. You experience shock. You experience it. So experience, emotion means it has to have motion. It's supposed to come up and through. What we do is we feel that the heart starts to flutter. We're not used to it. So because it feels different and feels awkward, we think it's a stranger in our body. So we repel it. So we get away from it. So what do? We get ourselves distracted. I'll get my phone. Games have gone through the roof. One of the number one industries outside of groceries, because we're all idiots because we think we're actually in a starvation. What the hell is that? We don't have a food shortage.
Here in Australia, it's all about the toilet paper.
Oh, it's the same here.
Apparently, we're going to run out.
It's the same here. I went back to when we were poor. So if you did a wee, you could use 3 squares.
You're rationing by square. Yeah.
We did. We had to ration as a kid. Yeah. And so as those feelings come up, and I know people have got heat on that, when they go, I have anxiety, my anxiety is through the roof. Don't give it a house. No feeling's meant to have its home in your body. So you sit there and you breathe through it. Now, grief will come up, sadness will, shock, shame, whatever it might be will come up. How do you think I felt? I couldn't even get the words out. I was sitting on my bed. It was on Sunday. And I went, because I thought she was my best friend. Like, how do I get this out? I said, and I started, hey, listen, love, I just need you. Started bawling. She just held the space for me, tears rolling down my eyes, barely get it out. And I said, listen, if this all goes to...
You can say shit. That's all right.
Yeah, that was the word. I could not get it out. And then eventually through the choked words, just bleeding tears, I said, she goes, don't even say it. She goes, there'll always be a space in my home for you. Always. And I think that's what I want us to do. What's the worst case scenario? Your partner leaves you. Trust me, you will get over it. Have you ever run into an old boyfriend or girlfriend?
Oh, yeah.
Like
Haven't we all? And
you go, and in your dreams you think, oh my God, they're so gorgeous. And then you see them and you go, what the hell was I thinking? So what's the worst case scenario, number one? I think that's future pace, go into the feeling, bring it back into your body, let the feelings come up, manage them, breathe through the nose, out through the mouth, nitric oxide into the blood system, calms the body down. We'll all be okay. Mm-hmm. We'll all be okay. Number 2, money. Now, I've made all these notes. I showed you before. I've got stickers everywhere.
Show us your notes.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. Because you can tell behind me. Like, everyone
now knows. So I'm a whiteboard person. You're a sticky note person.
I can't see whiteboards. Rubs off.
Yeah, that's why I like it. That's why I like it, Terry, because I feel like once I've done it, I just go, it's gone.
Oh, that must be my poor childhood. See, I can't.
Off my list. It's done. But anyway.
I've got to do the highlight, so, and then because I can go back and go, I've done all this.
It's whatever works. Whatever works.
And I go, if you get it out of you. Mm. So the worst thing is we get into overwhelm because it sits inside of our brain, and your brain can only cope with so many attention units. But the moment we got off the call, I just started data dumping everything that was coming into my head. Mm-hmm. One of the first thoughts that came into my head, and this is here I've got to do a health check inventory of you and your business. Health check inventory of you and your business. And so I wrote some of these down because everyone's in panic. And I guarantee you that if I was on the Titanic and I said, listen, I'm selling learn to swim classes. No one would, even if I was giving them away for free, no one would take them. Because when you're in a panic mode, see, panic is in the future. Anxiety is in the future. What's the worst thing? So we're going, oh my God, this is going to happen. Depression's in the past. We're sad or regretful for what has happened, what's been done, so forth. But if you just pause, hit the pause button right now. Just breathe, pause, go right, health check. Inventory, finances. I got a 0 on that one. Great feedback, Terry Hawkins. You're 58 years of age. I know what you're thinking, 21, maybe 22. But
totally.
Oldie but a goodie. I forgot to hit that, that face thing on.
Yeah.
Finances I'm not good at. So from this day forward, I am Flipman. Mm-hmm. I have responsibility for my finances. Education, I'm really good there. Educate yourself. What's your product offering? So pause and think about your business. This is a chance for you to really, really be empathic. I live for empathy. Be empathic for your customers. What do they actually really want? Oh, but I can't do it. Just get on and start videoing. People go, oh, I can't. I go, right, well, you don't have to because everybody else is going to be on there and you'll just miss out. So do your exercise classes or something. I must admit, I am seeing some ads and I'm so turned off by them. 30% off, they're still trying to make a deal. And I'm like, no, sorry. Have a bit of consideration for what's going on right now. But think about an offer. And so as a business, I just think sit down, do your audit. So do, education, finances. It's funny how I put those two up front because they're my number one, number 1 and 2. Have a look at your team, your staffing. So we're going to get rid of all of our staff. Let's be honest. Some of us did want to get rid of them. Isn't it true? Some of those people, you wanted to move them on, but you didn't want to go through the whole HR nightmare. And so, but it's true. This will give companies a good chance to clear out who they didn't want actually to be on their team. And it's also going to make the team member step up. Who gives you, just because you get a job doesn't mean to say you get a free ride. So make yourself viable, make yourself like one of the things I wrote, because I'm doing a couple of little programs, but one of them is educate yourself. So if you're an employee, make yourself the one they pick when they rehire. Yeah?
Great advice. Yeah.
It's the pick of the crop.
Yeah.
So sit down and do an inventory of your staff and then adapt. So I work in retail. Our whole thing's about retail. So I'm actually, everywhere I'm going now, it's all about Zoom. So everything's online, yeah? Now, don't worry because I truly know we'll come back and there could be a wave. So I'm thinking, all right, we've got, let's say, gut feel. And I saw this little kid in India who said he had a premonition of when it was going to start and he's had a premonition of when it's going to end. So I'm going to believe him. And so
why not? When exactly did he say it's going to end?
End of May.
Okay.
Now, be careful what you wish for.
Let's see what Sue's right.
It's a universal collective. So what one believes, the next believes, and we will make it come true. I'm hoping it'll be mid-May, early May, because my video editor's getting married on the 22nd and she wants it to go.
No.
Exactly. So let's just say we've got 6 weeks. All right, we've got 6 weeks to absolutely clean up everything, clean out our cupboards, clean out our business, clean out our closet, clean out our staff, get them training. I cannot believe that people are stopping everything. I go, get online. Like our clients, we've left it open. So a lot of them have just paused their payments. But we can't ask them to work. I'm like, you're not. You're saying get educated because you may not be one of the ones that get picked. So am I talking too much?
No. I just wanted to jump in and say I'm so glad you brought that up because I've actually got another interview coming next week and it is with a gym owner who has kept their staff on, not in their normal jobs, but is using this time to put them through educational courses. And in particular, like going back through old episodes of the Fitness Business podcast and saying to them, right, here's the show, go through, so there are amazing opportunities to learn at the moment. Like I'm going to jump on and do a course next week in finance.
Do it like a book club. Here's an idea.
It's a
do it like a book club. So go, right, everybody watch this. Now we're all going to get onto a Zoom call and we're going to have a meeting around the 5 core areas that you got from it, blah, 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 and the whole thing.
Yes, so I love that. Great time to be learning.
Great idea. Now, I had someone say to me, and this is the other thing too, and my time has come. Empathy has been my number one for 30. I did my first presentation on empathy when I was 24 years of age. The world thinks they understand empathy, but we are cognitively experiencing everything on this planet. We cognitively empathize. So we think about how we empathize. I'll think about how you feel. I'll think about putting myself in your shoes, but I won't put myself in your shoes because I have to actually have that emotional empathy. And emotional empathy is where we feel. Now, the moment we feel, we'll freak out, give it a name, anxiety, stress, whatever, drop into it deeper, become sympathetic, and then all of a sudden we have an ailment. I'm like, oh my God, the world needs to feel. We need to feel. So I would be doing every bit of interpersonal development I possibly could.
I love that advice. I think that is so important. And Terry, earlier when we were talking just before, you slipped in the word flip man, but not everyone will have known what you were talking about. And because it's so relevant to our Keep Me Fit Bizration at the end of this chat, I think it is super important that we just have a quick chat about Pitman and Flipman.
I love it.
And tell everyone what we're talking about.
Okay. So Flipman. Oh, hello, everybody. No, sorry. I was doing a Zoom call with one of my team in Australia yesterday. She's got 2 kids and they're sitting on a lap crawling over. So I literally...
Oh, my God. They would have loved that.
It was so funny because they were just getting distracted in the whole thing. And next thing I went, hello, my name's Lucy. And that was my cap. See, I coloured in my hat.
Oh, it's got a little fingernail hat.
Oh, my God, it was so funny. Okay, so Flipman, this is little Flipman. And people think he's a toy, but... he's not a toy. He's actually a process. So there's Pitman, who lives in the pit of misery, and there's Flipman. And Flipman is a 5-step process for repatterning your habits. And so what happens is, so there's habits and then there's goals. And people don't realise that habits actually form the momentum to create good goals. And we get very, very lazy. And so the reason I'm bringing up my iPad is I just recorded. So that's the kids version. So these... I feel like I'm doing a pitch now, but I'm not. I would give it away for free if I could. These are on iTunes. Now, if you've got children and you're at home, because I'm reading them and I'm going to put them on my website and give them away for free. But so it's a whole storybook on Let's Do Love, yeah? And so this is all about Pitman and so forth. I'm just trying to find Pitman. I know. She goes, all right, we didn't actually want this whole story. He's in here somewhere. Pitman is the part of us that goes into, now it's not grief, it's not sadness, it's not real emotion. Pitman is all of the, here he is. And haven't we felt like that? So Pitman is blame. So when you go into the pit, you go, it's not my fault. They did it to me. I can't believe no one's doing this. I can't believe they, like your employer, I can't believe they sacked me. Well, they didn't. They had to actually keep the company alive. So the company is the mother on the plane with the oxygen mask. And unless there's something to go back to, who cares, you know? So Pitman puts it outside of you, whereas Flipman owns it and says, well, you know what? I can't change what happened to me. I can't change the situation. And people will go, but I can change how I feel about it. No, you can actually change the pattern. And I wrote this down actually. It's in my, I've got a giveaway.
Oh, what?
Stop it. We just have.
How did you organise that so fast?
No, I just thought of it then. It's a new program we put onto our platform called Planning to Win. And I'm going to try and work it that I can get the videos. I'll work it somehow. Okay. And there's a 32-page workbook.
That would be amazing.
It's a goal-setting program. Oh. And so it's all around finances, everything. Yeah? So let's do that. But one of the questions in there is, what are the habits? Where is it? I've got to read it to you because I wrote it down. What is the strategy you use to not achieve your goals? Most of us will go, this is my strategy for achieving my goals. What's your unconscious strategy that actually stops you from achieving what you want? What comes up for you? Some of us will go into such a deep state that we end up not getting out of bed. You know, some of us will spend our whole energy and time regurgitating the story of the pit and not move forward. So in the pit, I always say empathy for yourself, compassion, kindness, understanding, and for others. Empathy allows you to pause from the pain while you can get the wisdom, because you can't get the wisdom when you're in the pit. When you're having empathy, you can get the wisdom. You can go, all right, well, that stuff happened to me, you know, for 5 minutes when I was 4, and I've carried it for the next 50 years. What's the wisdom I got from that? Well, we're all victims of victims. We all hurt, whatever it might be. So that's Pitman, Flipman, very, very simply. But I just reckon if you're an adult watching this and you've got kids, or you just don't like reading, get the kids' book, one of the kids' books. And every children's book, it goes through see, say, feel, do, be. Well, actually, that we don't do be, but see, say, feel, do. And then if you go visual, auditory, kinesthetic, so see it, you've got to see, future pace, See it. Can you see it? Can you visualize it? A lot of us can visualize a disaster very clearly. Yeah? If
Absolutely.
you keep doing that, we lead our relationships with, you better not do that again. We go looking for, listening for, feeling for how they're going to get under our skin. And then we go, there it is. You never change. Instead of see, say, feel, do. So anyway.
What we're going to do is I'll grab the link so everyone can check out the book and the kids' book, because I think that will be of interest to a lot of people at the moment. So, Terry, look, I know that you and I could talk all day long, and there's so much to dive into, but I think I do want to finish off this conversation with our Keep Me Fit Inspiration, because I think that, with everything we've talked about, with where everyone is at the moment, I would love you to just share, I guess, one key message for them to take home today. So what would you say would be your number one most important piece of advice for people to flip that switch, to really take that flip man perspective on things, for now and in the weeks or months ahead?
I think the most important question to ask is, how much is enough? How much really is enough? And I think when you can decide how much is enough as a company, how much profit is enough? How much do you really need to make, as an individual? How much is enough? How much do I need to be happy? Not comparative to somebody else, but for myself to be happy, to be fulfilled. And I think the best, just a fun way, I think, to finish, when I do leadership training and I talk about how managing people and leading people is very similar to, I'll take the glasses off for this, and I'm sorry if I sound crazy too. I apologise to people if I'm like a bit of a nutter. I just get nervous about time running out, but you should see me over 3 days. I'm fantastic. But when I'm doing leadership training, I said it to parenting, and I go, great leaders are like great parents, and we guide and influence a person's perception of an experience. That's basically what it's about. And so I usually tell a story about, if you're a pitman parent, and let's say you lose everything. So, and I've said this before the coronavirus. And so let's just say, so you go to your kids and you go, all right, kids, listen, we've lost everything. We've got no money. We've had to sell the house. We're going to live in a tent. We're taking you out of private school and you're going to be homeschooled, and your mother only got to 4th grade, so good luck. And I hope you like baked beans. Well, the flip man leader goes, who likes camping?
I love that story.
So it truly is. Don't give it more drama than it needs. People are dying. Australia, get inside. What are you doing? You need to go inside, stay inside, and you'll be fine for 14 days. Apparently you can last for 10 days without food, I think. Isn't it?
Is that right?
We're not in a food shortage, people. I don't know what's going on. So, Chantel, I love you for reaching out. I have felt nervous all the way through this.
Oh.
I just want people to know you're never ready, and that's what makes you human, and we need more of you.
Thank you so
much.
I
love you, Chantel.
Terry.
You're beautiful.
Thank you so much. We love you so much for doing this, and for, literally from yesterday turning around and saying, sure, I'll jump on and talk to the FBP family and share my wisdom with everyone. And we are truly, truly grateful for your time, Terry. Thank you for sharing those stories. And I think for us to understand that perspective, and to me, everything was in that last takeaway with Pitman and Flipman, and let's just get ready to go camping, right? So I love it, Terry. Thank you so much. And I'm going to put your contact details right below here in the video. Our amazing Diana is going to pop those in for us, and also the details for the book as well. So thank you so much, Terry.
And listen, I'm going to have a coffee meeting,
a Zoom coffee.
A Zoom coffee next week. Oh no, I'm doing it on whenever it is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. If you guys want to do a Zoom coffee,
thank you.
I'm thinking 20 people, because it's too hard to manage more than that. And maybe we can have a champagne.
I know. It might be Zoom happy hour, I think. I had one of those last week. It was fabulous.
So let's do it. Let's do
Zoom
it. So
happy hour
first 20 people.
Heap of fun. Let's do it. We'll get it organised. Thank you so much again, Terry. Thank you.
Safe passage, humans. Safe passage.
And to you.
Thank you once again to Jason and to Terry, and also thank you to our friends at Gym Sales for their ongoing support. For more COVID-19 videos, please visit our website at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/COVID-19, the number 19, -videos. Thank you so much for joining me.